All right, another spark and another build. The weave is open. Today we're tackling the very heartbeat of Tools and Titans. We're moving past the characters, past the lore, and looking at the engine of play itself. The rhythm of every single match.
We get this question all the time from new players and even veterans. How does a game with so much depth actually feel to play, moment to moment? It's one thing to know your Titan's backstory, but it's another to understand the flow of battle. What is the essential pulse of a turn that makes it all come together?
Today we're answering that by looking at the journey from your first draw to your ultimate ascension. It's a journey defined by a simple, elegant loop. A loop that contains every decision, every strategy, and every victory.
And it all starts with 6 foundational steps.
So how do you play Tools and Titans? Easy. Draw your cards, charge your energy, build your field. Act with your powers. Clash with your Titans, end your turn.
6 steps, 1 epic battle. That's the loop, the fundamental cadence of the game. But inside those 6 steps lies a universe of strategy, designed for both methodical construction and explosive turn-ending action.
Exactly. Let's break it down phase by phase and explore the choices within. It all begins, as it should, with the draw phase. On the surface, it's simple. You draw 1 card from your deck. But this draw is your first resource, your first strategic choice of the turn.
And what you want to draw depends entirely on your strategy. If you're playing an aggressive Fusio deck, you're desperate for that final tool to enable a massive attack. But if you're a control player using Machinara, you might be hoping for a key flux card to disrupt your opponent's carefully laid plans. That single card can define everything.
Then comes the second step, and it's one of the most crucial decisions you'll make, the charge phase. This is where you generate your core resource, your energy. You choose 1 card from your hand and you place it face down into your charge pool. That card is now, for all intents and purposes, your fuel for the turn.
And this creates a fantastic dilemma. You might have a powerful late-game structure in your opening hand. It's your win condition. But you need energy now to play your defenses. Do you charge your win condition, sacrificing it for tempo? Or do you hold it, hoping you draw a less important card to charge next turn? It's a masterful bit of design that forces a tough, meaningful choice right away.
That choice directly feeds into phase 3, the build phase. With the energy you just committed, you can now forge your field. This is where you play your structure cards. These can be defensive fortifications like the Aegis Barrier, resource generators like the Weave Capacitor, or combo engines like the Forge Complex Assembly.
This is also where you equip your tools, the very instruments that define your Titan's trade. For Valara the Electrician, this might be her galvanic wrench. For Masonics, his keystone hammer. The build phase is where you establish your board presence. It's where you ask your opponent the fundamental question, can you deal with what I am building?
Following that is the dynamic and often explosive 4th step, the act phase. If the build phase is setting the stage, the act phase is the performance. Here you can activate the abilities of the tools and structures already in play. Maybe your Weave Capacitor lets you draw a card, or your Galvanic Wrench lets you stun an opposing structure.
But more importantly, this is the phase for your fast, reactive cards, your flux cards. These can be played at almost any time, but this is your primary window to use them proactively. You could play an offensive flux like Rustbolt to damage an enemy Titan, or a defensive one like Phase Shift to protect your own. It's a flurry of action and reaction.
And crucially, the act phase is where you make your grandest commitment. This is where you play your task cards into the midfield. You are setting a goal, initiating a divine mission that will likely take several turns to complete. It is the most significant, forward-thinking move you can make.
Which brings us to the climax of the turn, the 5th step, the clash phase. This is combat, pure and simple. Your Titan and any structures capable of attacking can now target your opponent, but you have another choice to make. Do you attack their Titan directly, trying to reduce their health to 0?
Or Do you attack their structures? Maybe they just played a key combo piece, that forge complex assembly. Taking it out now might not win you the game immediately, but it could completely derail their entire strategy. It's the classic dilemma: pressure their life total or dismantle their engine. Your choice here reveals your strategy.
And finally, we have the sixth step, the end phase. This isn't just a cleanup step, it's a moment of resolution and consequence. Certain end-of-turn effects trigger now. Perhaps a structure you built generates one last resource. Perhaps a corrosive Rustborn effect deals a point of damage to everything on the board.
And most importantly, this is when you check for task completion. Did you meet the conditions of your divine mission this turn? The end phase is where your long-term progress is measured and rewarded. And that completes the loop. Draw, charge, build, act, clash, end. A cycle that feels intuitive, but offers incredible strategic depth.
But today, we want to zoom in on the part of that loop where strategy truly becomes story. It's an action you take in the act phase, but its impact resonates through every turn that follows. We're talking about the zone where missions are forged and destinies are written. We are going deep on the Midfield Task Zone.
Every Titan turn: draw, charge, building act, clash, end. 6 steps. Infinite ways to forge your victory.
But victory isn't always about having the strongest Titan or the biggest attack. In Tools and Titans, victory is often about purpose, and that purpose lives in a very specific, very important place on the game board, the Midfield Task Zone.
All right, let's apply our deep dive framework. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Let's start with who. Who really uses this zone?
While every player has task cards, some Titans don't just use this zone, they live in it. These are the Titans focused on Ascension, on combo building, on achieving a goal beyond mere combat. Think of Draftor, the Shattered Architect. His entire game plan revolves around playing and completing fragment tasks, which represent pieces of his lost masterpiece, the Shattered Blueprint. When he finds all the pieces, he wins.
And on the opposite end, you have the Corrupted Titans who subvert this zone. Rustara, the Corroded Planner, uses rust tasks. These might reward her for having her own structures destroyed or for filling her junkyard with cards. She turns failure and decay into a weapon. Lockara, the Stagnant Sage, plays tasks that punish the opponent for progressing, creating a web of stagnation.
So while an aggressive brawler like Fusio might barely touch the task zone, these more methodical Titans make it the centerpiece of their entire strategy. It defines them.
Okay, so that's the who. Now, what exactly is the Midfield Task Zone? And where is it?
Think of it as your mission log or your divine blueprint made real on the board. It's a dedicated space, physically located between your frontline forge zone and your backline Titan panel. Its position is symbolic. It's the bridge between your immediate actions and your ultimate goal. It connects what you are doing with why you are doing it.
Which leads us to the biggest question. Why? Why does this zone matter so much?
Because it is the narrative core of the game, expressed through mechanics. It's the primary engine for some of the most powerful effects, including the game-changing mechanic of Titan Ascension. Ascension is when you complete such a monumental task that your Titan transforms, replacing your card on the field with a new, vastly more powerful version of itself. It's a huge payoff.
It's also where the game's deepest combos live. You might have a task that, upon completion, lets you search your deck for 2 specific tools and put them into play, which in turn fuels your next task. It's how you build your masterpiece.
But more than that, it anchors the entire theme of Tools and Titans. This is a game about divine craftsmanship, about building something meaningful. The task zone is where that happens. It's where you prove your Titan's mastery of their trade.
It's not just about winning the battle. It's about fulfilling a purpose. So finally, how? How does it all work in a real game? Let's walk through an example.
Let's do it. Imagine you're playing as Volara, the storm-wielding electrician. On turn 3, during your act phase, you play a task card into your midfield. The task is called Assemble the Storm Spire. The condition reads, have 3 structures with the spark element in play.
Okay, so the mission is set. Now the work begins. On turn 4, I play and pay the energy for a static conduit, a spark structure. Then I equip Volara with a charged hammer, another spark card. That's 2 of the 3 pieces. The spire is not yet complete.
Exactly. Your opponent sees this. They know what you're building towards. On their turn, they might try to disrupt you, using a clash action to destroy your static conduit. They are actively trying to stop your progress. This is the tension the task zone creates. It's a slow race to completion versus your opponent's attempts at disruption.
But let's say I manage to protect my structures. On turn 5, I draw and play my 3rd spark structure, the lightning rod. Now I have all 3 pieces. So when my turn moves to the end phase, I check my task. The conditions are met. Assemble the Storm Spire is complete.
And that's the payoff. The card tells you the reward. It might say, gain 5 crafting power and deal 3 damage to any target. Suddenly, you've taken a huge leap towards ascending your Titan, and you've altered the board state significantly. That multi-turn effort paid off in a huge burst of value.
That slow burn makes the reward so much more satisfying. But it also highlights the weaknesses. That was 3 turns of setup. An aggressive deck could have done a lot of damage in that time.
That is the core weakness. Tempo. Task decks can be slow. They are also vulnerable to direct disruption. We mentioned combat, but certain flux cards can remove tasks or even give your opponent control of them, and it requires careful deck building. You need to draw not just your tasks, but also the specific cards required to complete them. It's a balancing act.
So how do different deck archetypes approach this?
A dedicated control deck, like one for Machinara, will use tasks as their inevitable win condition. They will spend the early game using flux cards and defensive structures to slow the opponent down, all while slowly building towards a game-winning task completion. A Rustborn deck, as we said, inverts it. Rustara might use a task that completes if she has 5 or more cards in her junkyard. She actively wants to discard her own resources to fuel her twisted progress.
And for solo or co-op campaigns, this zone must be everything.
It is the entire story. The tasks you draw are the literal objectives for the scenario you're playing. Repair the city gates, cleanse the corrupted weave well, survive the onslaught. You're not just trying to win, you're trying to complete the narrative. It transforms the game from a simple duel into a story you are an active part of.
So the Midfield Task Zone is where the why of the game truly lives. It's not just about the clash, it's about the craft.
That's the perfect way to put it. It is the intellectual and spiritual engine of tools and titans. It rewards players not just for what they play, but for why they play it. It is intention given form. Victory achieved through the task zone is rarely instant, but it is always, always meaningful.
And it all comes back to that simple, elegant loop, the foundation upon which every grand design is built.
From your first card to your final ascended form, the path is forged turn by turn, task by task.
In every match of tools and titans, your tradecraft unfolds in 6 simple moves: draw, charge, building, act, clash, end.
Simplicity for the novice, mastery for the titan.